بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين. طيب, continue inshallah ta'ala. That was just a fire alarm inshallah. It was just a false alarm inshallah. طيب, نعم. So النبي, the prophet, is one who is sent to a people who are not necessarily in opposition to the truth, and he is not sent with a book, but he is all commanded to convey a message that came before him from a Rasul or a messenger.
Can you repeat that?
So, who's going to repeat it? من يعيد?
Not
So-
sent with the book. but
Yeah. So a prophet is one who is revealed to, من أوحي إليه, one who is revealed to with a wahi. Prophet. Yeah. Also, a prophet is also revealed to. They both are revealed to. So a prophet is one who is revealed to, and and he is sent. When we say sent, means he lived amongst, and he lived amongst a people who are not in opposition to the truth, and he is ordered to convey a message that came before him. A message that came before him. So the author says, أبدأ بالحمد مصليا على محمد خير نبي أرسلا. And then he says, وذي من أقسام الحديث عدة وكل واحد أتى وحده. وذي هنا, here he says ذي. This is short for هذه. Okay? But للضرورة الشعرية, because of the necessity of poetry, the ha and the alif have been omitted. So ذي وهذه and هذه, he says وذي, this, this مشيرا, and he's pointing to something. من أقسام الحديث, this poetry that you have in front of you contains the different categories of hadith. من أقسام الحديث عدة, the different categories of hadith, and they are plentiful. عدة means they are plentiful or they are numerous. وكل واحد أتى وحده. He says وكل واحد, and every one of these definition, or every one of these categories of hadith, أتى أي سيأتي, will come, definitely will come. أتى will come, and we will mention them. وحده, and we will also mention its definition. We will also mention its definition. That's the meaning of the second line of poetry. So هذه is اسم إشارة. Does anyone know what اسم إشارة means? What's an اسم إشارة? And نعم تفضل.
إشارة means sign.
إشارة can mean sign, yeah, but in this context it means اسم إشارة is it's an indicative noun. It's a noun that is used to indicate something. هذه, هذا. هذا is for male, for the masculine, هذا, and for the feminine, هذه. So when he said وذي, okay, what is he indicating to? He's indicating to what? He's indicating to his manzuma, his work. He's saying وهذه, this in front of you, this book in front of you. He's indicating to the book. So this indication, is it a real tangible indication, or is it a metaphorical indication? What does that mean? Okay. If we say real, that means, if we say it's a real indication, it means that he must have written this book prior to the writing of this line of poetry. Meaning the book must have been written, and then he said, وَهَذِهِ, this. That's a real one. Do you understand? That's a real indication. Just like when you're pointing to this chair, it's there. Okay? If we say metaphorical indication, what does it mean? A metaphorical indication means that the book hasn't been written in paper format, but it's in his head. Do you understand? It's not written in paper format, but he knows what he's going to write. So he's indicating to something that he knows will occur. وهذه. Do you understand? Okay, so that's the two indications. هذه here it could be a metaphorical indication, which could mean what?
It's not written.
It's not written, or it could be a real indication, which means it's been written. نعم. وذي من أقسام الحديث عدة وكل واحد أتى وحد. And we know what a had means, yes? A definition. We discussed what a definition means. You've all written it. A definition needs to include all necessary elements of the definition and needs to exclude all outside elements. Okay, that's a definition. طيب. So أقسام الحديث هنا, when he says أقسام الحديث, is he now going to discuss علم الحديث الدراية or علم الحديث رواية? Which one? Does anyone know? What is he going to discuss? علم الحديث رواية أو علم الحديث الدراية? أحسنت. نعم. No. رواية. نعم رواية. So he's going to discuss علم الحديث رواية. Okay, the sanad of the hadith. أقسام الحديث هنا is the sanad of the hadith. He's not going to delve into the matan and the fiqh of the hadith. That's not what this book is about. This is not a fiqh book. This is a mustalah al-hadith book.
So should that be? Okay.
Yeah, it's a mustalah al-hadith, chain of narrations. That's what the book focuses on. And then he says, وَكُلُّ وَاحِدٍ أَتَى. Now, أَتَى, can anyone tell me, is أَتَى a fi'l ماضي or fi'l مضارع? Is it a present tense or a past tense?
Past.
It's a past tense. طيب. So why is he saying if it's past tense? He's saying وَكُلُّ واحد, in each one of these definitions and these aqsam, أَتَى, they have happened. But they haven't. He's writing it right now. This is the second line of poetry. So how can he say that it's happened in the past when it will happen in the future? Does anyone know why? The answer to that question is the Arabs, when they want to talk about something that will occur, definitely occur, there is no possibility that it will not occur, they يعبرون عن الماضي يعبرون عن المستقبل بالماضي لتحقق الوقوع. So they mention a verb that is in the past tense to indicate to something that will happen in the present or future tense because of the certainty of its happening or occurrence. Is that clear? Okay, so they indicate to something that will happen in the future by mentioning a fi'l madi, by mentioning a past tense, because of their certainty that it will occur. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, أَتَى أَمْرُ اللَّهِ فَلَا تَسْتَعْجِلُوا. The amr of Allah, the day of resurrection has come. Has it come? It hasn't come, but Allah in Surah Al-Nahl, He says it has come. Because Allah, أي سيأتي, it will definitely come. This is just a أسلوب لغوي. Okay? وكل واحد أتى وحدة. طيب. And then he says, he goes into the أقسام الحديث. أولها الصحيح وهو ما اتصل إسناده ولم يشذ أو يعل. Okay? ولم يشذ أو يعل. Here he talks about it's the first category of hadith. Category number 1, make that in your notes, category 1, C1 for short. Okay, الصحيح, الحديث الصحيح. So he says أولها الصحيح. The first of these categories is الصحيح, the hadith that is called الصحيح. And as-sahih means authentic, sound. It means sahih has two meanings linguistically. It means someone who is healthy. Sahih means someone who is healthy. هذا رجل صحيح. This is a healthy man. هذه امرأة صحيحة. This is a woman that is healthy. Okay, and the opposite of sahih is alil, unhealthy, sick. Okay, so and technically as-sahih is what he says here. وهو ما اتصل إسناده ولم يشذ أو يعل. He says that the sahih وهو ما اتصل إسناده ولم يشذ أو يعل. He says the first of them, meaning the first of them is sound. The first of these categories is hadith that is sound. وهو ما اتصل, and that is neither broken in its chain nor does it contradict or have a hidden failing. So to make matters easier for you, as-sahih وهو ما اتصل, a sahih hadith is a hadith with a continuing chain of narration, or with a connected chain of narration, with a connected chain. Its isnad is connected and continuous. وَلَمْ يَشِذ, and it doesn't have shudud, it doesn't have any irregularities. أو يعل, and it doesn't have a hidden defect. It doesn't have a hidden defect. And it doesn't have a hidden defect. طيب. الحافظ العراقي رحمه الله تعالى regarding الحديث الصحيح, he says وأهل هذا الشأن قسموا السنن إلى صحيح وضعيف وحسن, فالأول المتصل الإسناد بنقل عدل ضابط الفؤاد عن مثله من غير ما شذوذ وعلة قادحة فتوذ. So the definition of Al-Imam Al-Bayquni is similar to the definition of Al-Imam Al-Hafiz Al-Iraqi rahimahullah ta'ala. So the hadith that is sahih huwa muttasal. It is a hadith that it's connected. Okay, the chain of narrations is connected. There is no inqita', the chain of narrators is not broken. طيب. So huwa ma ruya bi isnadin muttasil. So that means that every rawi, what's a rawi? Narrator. Na'am. So that means every rawi takes his hadith from his shaykh, who takes it from his shaykh up until the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So there is no inqita', which means that each one of them met each other. They all met each other. They actually took it from each other physically. Okay, they physically took it from each other. طيب.
Sorry, the word for this meaning is that you should.
No, we're not talking about the shud. We're talking about ittisal. Okay. Ittisal. The word is ittisal muttasil. Okay, al-hadith al-muttasil. طيب. So al-hadith al-muttasil. So the hadith that is muttasil is a hadith that is connected. Okay? It's a hadith that is connected. So al-muttasil hadith, the definition of al-hadith al-muttasil هو المرفوع الذي اتصلت روايته بسمع كل راو عمن فوقه. Okay, so the hadith that is muttasil is a hadith that is attributed or ascribed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and each narrator heard from his shaykh through by actually hearing him, physically hearing him, bisama', by physically hearing him with his ears. So based on this definition of muttasil, there are three conditions for hadith to be called muttasil. There are three conditions. The first is as-sama'. The first is that the hadith is a hadith that has been physically heard. The second is ittisal, continuity of the chain. The third is an yakuna marfu'an, is that the hadith is ascribed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, so this is a hadith that is muttasil. Please bear in mind, make sure you concentrate inshallah ta'ala, because there are other aqsam, there are other rulings that will be based on what I've just said. So who's going to repeat quickly the three shurut? Quickly, who's going to repeat it?
It's a hadith that's heard.
Physically heard, one.
Yeah, and the second one is the narrations continue.
Continuity of narration. And three?
The hadith is ascribed to the Prophet.
Na'am. Okay. طيب.
The hadith, what was it then? Sorry.
And yakuna, and is ascribed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. طيب. So that's the first opinion of what a muttasil is. The second opinion of what a muttasil is, inshallah ta'ala, is that it is a hadith, it's a narration in which each narrator narrates from the one above him. Each narrator narrates from the one above him. That's it. That's a hadith that is muttasil. Up until the narration ends with the statement of a particular narrator. With the actual statement of a particular narrator. Is that clear? So the second opinion is that it is a narration narrated by a narrator. It is a narration narrated by a narrator. That's what the second opinion is. It is a narration, meaning a statement, narrated by a narrator. Mutlaqan. So that means that the second opinion is more general than the first opinion. Just write it down now. Write everything down. Later on when you get home, inshallah ta'ala, then you can think about it and analyze it, and then you'll have questions. But right now, inshallah ta'ala, just write these things down, inshallah, and memorize them as they are. طيب.
Can you just repeat that again, sorry, Sheikh? Each narrator narrates from the one above him until
Which one? The first meaning?
the second.
The second meaning, yeah. Each narrator narrates from the one above him until the statement ends. Until the narration ends with the statement of a narrator. Okay, that's the long version. The short version, it's a narration narrated by a narrator. Right? So these two opinions, the first one is more specific to the narrations of who? Of who? Of the Prophet ﷺ. And the second is more broad, and it encompasses the narrations of the Prophet, the companions, the tabi'un, all of them muttasil. And the correct opinion is the second opinion. Okay? طيب. The next issue and mas'ala pertaining to al-ittisal is it a condition for a narrator, is it a condition of the acceptance, write this question down, is it a condition for the acceptance of a narration, for an acceptance of the narration, to establish that a narrator actually met his shaykh physically? He actually met him physically. Okay, so basically what the question entails is it enough to know in that this narrator narrated many narrations from that shaykh only, generally speaking, and we do not need to know exactly that he heard him narrate this particular hadith. So مثلا, imagine you have a shaykh, and you always this shaykh always gives you a hadith every single time he gives you a hadith. So the people, you have become famous for taking from that shaykh. Everyone knows you take from that shaykh. Okay? Then one day you say, my shaykh said this and this. Is it necessary for the people to ascertain and to verify that particular statement that you are mentioning from the shaykh is something that you have heard from the shaykh? So do they have to actually go to the shaykh and say, did you say this to so and so? Or is it enough for the people to say that we do not need to verify, because we know that this is his or her shaykh? We know that's the case. We don't need to verify. Do you understand the issue now? Is it clear in your head? طيب, what's the answer? There are three, the scholars they say, there are three opinions. Okay, there are three opinions. The first opinion is it's enough to establish that he heard from the shaykh, even once. If it can be established that he heard from the shaykh even once, then we can take his hadith. Provided that he is not a mudallis. Just like mudallis, you'll find out who a mudallis is afterwards. Provided that he is not a mudallis. A mudallis. Okay, that's the first opinion. The second opinion, yushtaratul luqi. It is a condition and a criterion to establish a meeting, to establish that they actually met. In that particular narration, he actually physically took it from the shaykh's mouth in that particular narration. And the third opinion is that it is enough to establish al-mu'asara. It is enough to establish that they were contemporaries, that they lived in the same era. Okay? So these are three opinions.
Can you say the second one?
The second one, yushtaratu luqi. The criterion is to establish that they actually physically met in person for that particular narration. We don't care about other narrations. For that particular narration, they actually met in person. And the third one, yushtaratul mu'asara, it's enough to establish that they lived in the same era. طيب. So Al-Imam Al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala, he took the second opinion. This is why the Sahih of Al-Imam Al-Bukhari is arfa' manzilatan. The Sahih of Al-Imam Al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala is more elevated in status than Muslim. That's why Sahih Bukhari was muqaddamun ala Sahih Muslim. So he took the second opinion. And Imam Muslim, he took the third opinion. And Imam Muslim wasn't stringent and strict, and he refuted vigorously and with zeal those who say that the meeting is a condition. He refuted the second opinion, and Imam Muslim. But the second opinion, wallahu a'lam, is more stricter and more stern, and any hadith that fulfills the requirement of the second opinion is no doubt inshallah ta'ala it's a hadith that is sahih. هذا هو المتصل. طيب. طيب. So أولها الصحيح وهو ما اتصل إسناده ولم يشذ. Now we'll find out what يشذ means. يشذ is من الشذوذ. Okay, يشذ is من الشذوذ. طيب. ما هو الشذوذ؟ الشذوذ linguistically and technically, actually الشذوذ actually means an irregularity in a chain. Okay, there's an irregularity. A shudud is something that is irregular. طيب. Linguistically, a shudud is irregular. Okay, shudud linguistically لغة, it means something that shows an irregularity. ولم يشذ, it shows irregularity. Technically, هو مخالفة الثقة هو الحديث الذي يرويه الثقة مخالفا لمن هو أرجح منه. So a shudud is a hadith that is narrated by an acceptable rawi, narrator, which opposes and contradicts the narration of a more reliable, more acceptable and more trustworthy narrator. Okay, in terms of number and in terms of status. Do you understand? Let me repeat it again. الشذوذ هو هو الحديث الذي يرويه الثقة مخالفا لمن هو أرجح منه إما في العدد وإما في العدالة وإما في الصدق. So الشذوذ is a hadith that is narrated by an acceptable narrator, a narrator who's thiqah, who's acceptable, which is in opposition and contradiction to the narration of, or narrations of, more trustworthy and more acceptable narrators in terms of their number and in terms of their status and in terms of their integrity. So مثلا, if one who is thiqah, مثلا you have Zayd and you have Amr. Zayd is trustworthy, but Amr is more trustworthy. Amr has more credentials. Zayd narrates a hadith, and Amr narrates the same hadith but contradicts him and mentions something different. Okay? So now Zayd, his hadith is shadh. Do you understand? Zayd's hadith is called hadithun shadh. And the hadith of Amr, who is more reliable, is called mahfuz, which we'll get to later on. The opposite of shadh is mahfuz. Do you understand? Okay? So inshallah ta'ala, this is something very important. So عندنا شاذ وعندنا محفوظ. طيب. مثلا, I'll give you an example. So الشذوذ, the scholars they say, an example of a shudud. I'll give you an example of al hadith al-shadh. In Sunan, there's a hadith, نهى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عن الصيام بعد منتصف شعبان. Okay, this is a hadith. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم prohibited fasting after the 15th of Sha'ban. Okay, this hadith is it's in Sunan. It's a hadith that is narrated. All of them are thiqat. They're all acceptable. However, in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim, the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تقدموا رمضان بصوم يوم ولا يومين إلا رجل كان يصوم صوما فليصمه. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, do not precede Ramadan by fasting a day or two. يعني يوم الشك. Do not precede the fasting of Ramadan. The fasting now, it's in Sha'ban obviously. Do not fast, meaning the 29th and the 30th of Sha'ban. For fear of missing Ramadan. Except if it's done by a man who has, who used to fast those days and it's his custom, because it could coincide with a Monday or a Thursday. So now, the first hadith contradicts the second hadith, the second contradicts the first. The first hadith says you cannot fast after Ramadan. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, لا تصوموا لا تقدم the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he says نهى النبي عن الصيام بعد منتصف شعبان. Okay, so he prohibited. Whereas in the second hadith, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم made an exception to someone who يعني used to fast Mondays and Thursdays, and if it coincides with يعني just a few days before Ramadan, then let him fast. So there's a clear contradiction. Okay. طيب. Al-Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala, he took the second hadith. Okay, he took the second hadith, and he said that the first hadith huwa hadithun shadh, because of the fact that Bukhari and Muslim, their narrations are given precedence over any of the narrations of the Sunan. So this is why the first hadith is considered to be shadh, and the second hadith is considered to be mahfuz. طيب.
So if we apply that to the technical definition that we've just been given, does that make...
Which definition of what?
The word
Sahih?
shudud.
Yeah.
So does that make Bukhari the one whose fiqh is acceptable, or does that make Bukhari the one who's more trustworthy?
It makes Bukhari the one. Bukhari is more trustworthy and reliable. No one can stand up to Bukhari's integrity. He's usually more right than others. So the first hadith was in Sunan Abi Dawood, and this is something we'll get to. We'll get to the levels of the kutub, inshallah ta'ala. The first hadith is in Sunan Abi Dawood, and you have Sahih Bukhari. If you have the same hadith in Sahih Bukhari and they both contradict each other, even if the hadith in Sunan Abi Dawud is thiqat, we give precedence to Imam al-Bukhari's hadith because of the fact that it has more weight. However, this is bishart, this is on condition that we cannot reconcile between the two. Do you understand? If we can najma', إذا نقدر najma', these are what you're learning now is ilmu ala, it's tools. These tools help you look. They're using mustalah hadith in order to give weight to one hadith over the other based on reasoning, based on their inference and their conclusions that they come with, their reasoning and their intellectual skills based on the Quran and the Sunnah. Do you understand? This is called ijtihad. So this is so some scholars they disagree and they say we can do jam' baynahuma, but regarding that, Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala, he said that the first is shadh and the second is mahfuz. طيب. There are many other examples. مثلا a hadith can be shadh if it contradicts something that is known from this religion with necessity, out of necessity. If there's something that is known out of necessity, because the narrators can make mistakes. They can make mistakes. They can err. So if a hadith contradicts something that is known from this deen out of necessity, it is also considered shadh. An example is the hadith of Bukhari, where the Prophet ﷺ says, أنه يبقى في النار فضل ممن دخلها من أهل الدنيا فينشئ الله لها أقواما. The Prophet ﷺ says that when everyone enters the fire and everyone enters the Jannah, Allah will create people in Jahannam. People will be created in Jahannam to live in Jahannam. Now this hadith contradicts something that is known from this deen out of necessity, وهو أن الله لا يظلم أحدا, and that is that Allah does not oppress anyone. Because what was their sin? Why would Allah create a people in Jahannam, in the fire? They didn't commit any shirk, they didn't commit any sin. So because of this, we reject, this hadith is rejected, and the scholars they say there's a lafz, the rawi that narrated it, he was talking about paradise that Allah will create, and he just put the fire there. Sometimes ghafla happens, absent-mindedness, sometimes because they're human as well. Although they are thiqat and their memorizational skills are out of this world, but they still make mistakes. طيب. So as-sahih, so basically he says إسناده ولم يشذ أو يعل. طيب, so what's a shadh? What's a hadith shadh? Who can repeat what the definition of hadith shadh technically?
Linguistically, is something that is irregular.
Okay, and technically?
Technically, is a hadith that is narrated by an acceptable narrator, which is imposition and contradiction more trustworthy and acceptable narrator.
نعم, أحسن. طيب. So he says ولم يشذ أو يعل. يعل هنا means العلة. So the hadith cannot contain a illa. And the word illa means sickness. Linguistically, it means sickness. Okay? So the hadith cannot be basically sick. The linguistically means sickness. Technically, okay, العلة في الحديث, the scholars they say هو وصف يوجب خروج الحديث عن القبول. It is a description that necessitates the rejection of a hadith. It's an attribute and a characteristic that is in the hadith that necessitates the rejection of that hadith. Okay?
So when you look at hadith, two hadiths from two different people, like Bukhari or someone else, does the person that's trying to find out which one is more stronger, do they look at the method that Bukhari used to find a hadith, like the Muttasil?
With regards to the illah, any hadith that is alil, this is another science. So Mustalah al-Hadith is a science, and in that science there are sciences. In Mustalah al-Hadith you have ilm al-rijal, you have ilm al-ruwat, the knowledge of the men, of the narrators. You have ilm al-jarh wa ta'dil. You have ilm حتى al-kuna wal-alqab, the knowledge of their nicknames and their alqab, their titles. So ilm al-ilal is also a part of Mustalah al-Hadith. So al-illatu fil hadith, this type of hadith, this illah that we've mentioned cannot be illah qadiha. Okay, it cannot be an obvious defect. Illah means defect. Illah means defect, something that is a defect and a defect in the hadith. So this illah cannot be an obvious illah. Okay, illah qadiha, an illah that is that affects the integrity of the hadith. It cannot be a illah that affects the integrity or compromises the integrity of the hadith. طيب. So على هذا now we have 5 conditions for a hadith to be called sahih. We have 5 conditions. I'm going to tell you these conditions one by one, inshallah. So الشرط الأول, the first condition for a hadith to be sahih, هو اتصال السند. That the continuity of the chain of narrators. The continuity of the chain of narrators. This is the first condition for a hadith to be called sahih. The second condition for a hadith to be called sahih, adalatul ruwat. Adalatul ruwat is the adala and the religious integrity of the narrators. The religious integrity of the narrators. أن يكون عدلا. العدل means firmness and uprightness in religion. So he has to be upright in religion. That's the second condition. The third condition, ضبط الرواة, that the narrator for the hadith sahih has to be someone who is tam muddabt, someone who has complete retention, complete retentive skills, complete and accurate precision and memorization. Okay, that's the third condition. So they have to have complete. Does that mean they cannot make mistakes? Obviously yes, mistakes happen, but their mistakes are very few and far in between. Number 4, من شروط الحديث الصحيح أن يكون سالما من الشذوذ, that hadith is a hadith that is free from any irregularity. And number 5, أن يكون سالما من العلة القادحة, that hadith is a hadith that is free from any hidden defect that compromises the integrity of the hadith. Al-illa al-qadiha, a hidden defect that is obvious and compromises the integrity of the hadith. مثلا, I'll give you an example. Now, ittisal al-sanad. You have A narrates from B, narrates from C. Okay, A narrates from B from C. If A narrates from C, is there a continuity in the narration?
Yeah.
No, there isn't. There's no B. Where's B gone? How can A get to C without there being a B? Do you understand? When we say continuity, it means that A did not meet the C. He didn't meet him. So there clearly, imagine I say I heard, obviously, I heard from Sheikh Abdullah, مثلا, Sheikh, I heard from Al-Imam Al-Dhahabi this and this. Have I ever met? Is it technically possible for me to meet Al-Imam Al-Dhahabi? No. Okay, so my hadith is rejected. How did I meet Al-Imam al-Dhahabi? So how do they know? Scholars know that there's a breakage in the chain of narrators because of the fact that they know when they passed away. If A died in 2006, if C died in 2017, and A was born in 2018, how can he have met C? It's impossible. So this is why it's important that these ulama, they know when a person died, they know where he died, they know even how he died, and they know how he lived. Everything is preserved in books. طيب, so that's اتصال السند. Now we know what اتصال السند means. Okay, عدالة الرواة. عدالة العدل means, okay, there are conditions to be an adl. In order for a person, a Muslim, to be given the description of an adl, trustworthy, someone who has integrity, that person has to be Muslim. He has to be aqil. So he has to be Muslim. He has to be aqil, means mature. He has to be discerning. He has to be Muslim. Aqil means of sound mind. Sound mind. He has to be Muslim with sound intellect and mind. Baligh, he or she must have reached the age of discernment. Tamyiz, the age of discerning. So we have Muslim, aqil, baligh, and so he has to be a Muslim. He has to be someone who is so that's three conditions for a person to be adl: Muslim, aqil, baligh, and the fourth condition is for that person to be someone who is not an open sinner, not a sinner. Salim min al-fisq, someone who's free from sinning. Then that person is called adl. So someone who's upright in their religion. That's the second condition. So mathalan, A, I'll give you another example, narrates from B, who narrates from C. However, C smokes or drinks alcohol, and it's established. Is this hadith accepted? No. Okay. B who narrates from B, and who narrates from C, but B is someone who has been accused of lying. Al-muttahamu bil-kadhib. Is this hadith accepted? Just the mujarrad accusation. He's been accused, but the people accusing him are not just any people. They are people who are fiqh themselves. They are people who are trustworthy. Anyone can accuse anyone. Okay? So that hadith, the shart, the condition that is omitted, that is not present, is adala in the second hadith. طيب. The third is ضبط الرواة. ضبط الرواة means someone who is ضابط, someone who has high retention or complete retention.
You mean retention, the ability to memorize?
Not just the ability. It's been proven that their memorizational skills have reached the level of tamam al-dabt, have reached complete retention. They hear something, they memorize it straight away. They don't have, they memorize it straight away. We'll go more into them more depth. I'm just telling you now what it means, inshallah. طيب. So imagine A narrates from B, narrates from C, but C is someone who's absent-minded and known for forgetting things. Is this hadith correct? Accept sahih? No, it's not sahih. Okay, number 4, يكون سالما من الشذوذ, irregular. You have irregularities. The hadith if the hadith is irregular, it's not accepted. An example of an irregular hadith, we mentioned it. We know an irregular hadith. A, we have two chains of narrations. A narrates from B, who narrates from C. That the Prophet ﷺ said this, this, and this. And then we have another narration. D narrates from E, who narrates from F. That the Prophet ﷺ said this. It's the same hadith. However, the second hadith, they contradict each other, both hadith. So what do? We look at the narrators and we find that in the second narration, D and E, Bukhari and Muslim, they are Bukhari and Imam Malik are in there. But in A, B and C, they are trustworthy narrators, but they have not reached the level of Bukhari and Muslim. Which one do we take?
D.
We take the second one, D, E, and F. We take it the second route. This is called one route, and this is the second route. Okay? طيب. أن يكون سالما من العلة القادحة. And this fifth is that the hadith is free from an illah, an obvious defect that affects the integrity of the hadith. طيب. You have there are some ilal, there are some defects that do not affect the hadith. For example, if a rawi says, I narrated from Sufyan, but I cannot remember, is it Sufyan ibn Uyayna or Sufyan al-Thawri? Both of these two men are considered to be mountains of knowledge, but he cannot remember which one it is. This is a defect, but it's not a defect that compromises the integrity of the hadith, because whichever one he narrates from, the hadith is still going to be sahih. Do you understand? So this defect is a defect that is accepted, inshallah ta'ala. There's nothing wrong with it. What we're talking about is a defect that is in the hadith. For example, imagine an example of a defect that is very dangerous is if a rawi A narrates from B, who narrates from C. A and B, they lived in the same country, they lived in the same city, but they didn't actually physically meet. But because when a normal researcher, when he researches, he's going to say, oh, they lived in the same city and they lived in the same era and in the same town, so khalas, they must have met each other. But in reality, they didn't meet each other. Okay, A actually didn't meet B. Okay, there was no luqi, that's why Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala, he didn't even meet him, not even once. Okay, so this hadith has a hidden defect. Okay, so this hadith, it's called al-mursal al-khafi, which we'll get to later on, inshallah ta'ala. طيب. So now you know each five. Now, all you need to know is this. These are the 5 conditions for a hadith. طيب, al-adl, al-istiqama, okay? طيب, al-adl, the scholars, they say, we'll go back to al-adl, هو وصف في الشخص يقتضي الاستقامة في الدين والمروءة. It is a description or an attribute في الشخص, inshallah we'll have a break soon, bear with me inshallah. It is a description that is that is given to a person that necessitates uprightness in their religion, والمروءة, and integrity of person. So you have al-istiqama wal-muru'ah. طيب. So مثلا, if you have someone who is known for disconnecting the ties of kinship, this person is not adl. His hadith is not accepted. This person doesn't لا يصل أمه. He doesn't speak to his mother. He's boycotted his mother. He's boycotted his father. We don't take the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ from them. Okay? This person, someone is known for drinking alcohol. We do not take any hadith from them. Because Allah says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِنْ جَاءَكُمْ فَاسِقٌ بِنَبَإٍ فَتَبَيَّنُوا. O you who believe, if a fasiq, an open sinner, comes to you with news, then do not take it without verifying it. Verify and ascertain the authenticity of the hadith. طيب. What? Now.
So al-adl is a description given to a person regarding their integrity, meaning he's got good integrity.
Regarding the uprightness of their religion and their muru'ah, the integrity of their person. So what's the difference between uprightness in religion and muru'ah? We'll get to that now. So we know what uprightness in religion means. Okay, what is al-muru'ah? طيب, ما هي المروءة? Integrity. طيب, muru'ah, the scholars, they say, هو أن يفعل ما Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen رحمه الله تعالى, he says, هو أن يفعل ما يجمله ويزينه ويدع ما يدنسه ويشينه. It is for the person to do and to be known for doing that which beautifies him or her. Okay? وَيَدَعَ, it is that person leaves or abandons doing anything that is deemed ugly and inappropriate for someone like him or her to do. This is muru'ah. So a muru'ah could be, there are some types of muru'ah that are haram and there are some that are not haram. Mathalan, for example, if the people in a country are known for wearing hats, all the men they are known for wearing kufi. Okay, and then a sheikh comes and gives a lecture without wearing his kufi. Okay, this is now he has now compromised his integrity. If a sister, for example, she goes to a place where all the women wear a particular color hijab, all of them, they all wear a particular color hijab, and then she decides to wear something, they all wear black, for example, she goes there green, she wears green. This is something that has compromised her integrity. People are going to point at her, and Islam does not like a person to attract attention. Okay, so this is muru'ah. If, for example, it could be something that is halal. If for example a person now, for example, in nowadays, imagine someone who lived on Claremont Road, and this person went to their house on Claremont Road. They went into the kitchen, they cooked, and they cooked rice with chicken and curry, and then they put it on the plate. They put the spoon in, and then they walked. They went out of the house and they walked on Claremont Road. And as they were walking with the plate on their left hand, they started to eat the chicken and the rice with their right hand. Technically, this is not haram, but this is something that is this is something that obviously will arouse attention and suspicion. And this will obviously, if that person is a narrator of a hadith or someone who the people look up to, or a sheikh, they will be amazed at how he or she is behaving. Okay, so this is what muru'a means. Okay, this is what muru'a means. Doing something that is that attracts attention, basically attracts unwanted attention. That's what muru'a means. طيب. And muru'a always goes back to the urf of the people. If by all means in some place in this world that is something acceptable for people of knowledge to do, then maybe wallahu a'lam. If for example you go to a place where the people of knowledge shouldn't ride bicycles, and the sheikh comes and starts to ride a bicycle to the masjid, then this compromises his integrity. So now you know what muru'a means, inshallah. طيب. So this dabt, and so this now we have a dabit. So we know what dabt means. Tam dabt. Okay, someone who has complete retentiveness. Muru'a al-adl. This affects the science of al-jarh wa ta'dil. There is a particular science that is devoted to this particular group of people. People who have good memories, bad memories. People who have good religion, bad religion, not practicing. Called al-jarh wa ta'dil. Al-jarh wa ta'dil is knowledge of the disparagement, defaming particular narrators and endorsing other narrators. Okay, Al-Imam al-Dhahabi rahimahullah ta'ala, he has a book on al-jarh wa ta'dil. Okay, and he basically mentions those scholars who are known for disparaging or endorsing or invalidating particular narrators, such as Yahya ibn Ma'in, Abu Hatim al-Razi, Imam Malik ibn Anas, Shu'bah ibn al-Hajjaj al-Wasiti, Sufyan ibn Uyayna, Imam al-Shafi'i, Yahya ibn Ma'in, Abu Hatim al-Razi. So in their books, مثلا, an example of jarh is for them to say, مثلا, if a jarh is for a person to say, هذا صدوق يهم. This is a person who is trustworthy but he makes mistakes. Or هذا وضاع. This is a person who's known for fabricating the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Or هذا كذاب. This is an established liar. أو متهم بالكذب. This is a person who's been accused of lying. Okay, so there are grades of jarh. The worst jarh is, for example, a jarh that has a superlative, an adjective that is a superlative adjective. For example, أكذب الناس. He is the most the highest people in terms of lying, or the worst of liars. Or ركن في الكذب. He is a pillar of lying, pillar of deceit. Or for example, if they say ما رأيت مثله في الكذب, I have never seen someone lie like this person. This is the worst type of, and the hadith of this rawi. If a person has this description, his hadith, it doesn't matter if in the chain of narrations you have a'imma, you have Imam Malik and Imam Ahmed, doesn't matter. That hadith is considered to be a very weak hadith, if not mawdu'. Okay. Then the second category is muttahamun bil kadhib, one who is accused of lying. Not established liar. Sorry, the second category is established liar, al-kadhab. That's the second category. Okay. The third category is muttaham bil kadhib, one who has been accused of lying. Okay. The fourth category is da'if. He is weak. Da'ifun jiddan. He is very weak. Then you have, how many categories are we on now? Which one now? The fifth? On the fifth or the sixth now?
Fourth.
The fourth.
Fifth.
The fifth. Now we're on the fifth. Okay. So the fifth now is, for example, if they say هذا لا بأس به. There is nothing wrong with him. There's nothing wrong with him. لا بأس به. And this is the least ta'dil. This is the lowest level of endorsement where it comes to, now we've moved to the realm of endorsement. لا بأس به. So you don't, and I just want you to have a picture of what it means, what the scholars, to picture this, inshallah ta'ala, in your heads. Then you have صدوق يهم. He is a صدوق, but he makes mistakes. Or صدوق كثير الأوهام. He is صدوق, but he has many mistakes. Or for example, هو صدوق اختلط واحترقت كتبه واختلط. He is a صدوق, he is trustworthy, but his books burnt. Unfortunately, his books burnt, and because of this, اختلط, he became confused, and he started to mix ahadith up. So مثل هذا, for example, this, the scholars, they say, we take the ahadith that he narrated before his books got burnt, and we reject the ahadith he narrated after his books got burnt. So they know exactly. Or مثلا هو صدوق ولي القضاء فاختلط. He is a صدوق who became a judge, and because of the fact that he became a judge, اختلط. He started to become confused. This is why many of the scholars, they used to refuse to become judges, because being a judge, there's a lot of pressure on the judge, and it causes confusion, and it causes the person to forget most or all of, if not all of the knowledge that they had, or most of the knowledge that they had. Al-Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala, one of the governors of Kufa, I think it was Kufa or Basra, came to him and he said, I want you to be a judge. And he said, Inni la asluh. Al-Imam Abu Hanifa said, I am not appropriate, I am not suitable to become a judge. And he said, the person, the qadi, sorry, the ruler, he said, Kadhabta, you're lying, you are suitable to be a judge. And then Abu Hanifa responded by saying, if I am lying, if I am a liar, and you said I am lying, then I am not suitable to be a judge. You have now established the fact that I am lying. And if I am not lying, then I'm telling you, and I'm truthful. If I'm not lying, that means I'm truthful. I am telling you I'm not suitable to be a judge. And that's how he got out of it. So many scholars, they never wanted to be judges. So Saduq, then you have Thiqatun. You have Thiqa. He is trustworthy. And then you have Thiqatun Thiqa. Two descriptions with the same description. He is Thiqa and he's Thiqa. And then you have Athbatun Nas. He is the most strong of Thiqat. And you have Jabal, then Amir al-Mu'minin وهكذا. So these are Jarh wa Ta'dil. So one of the first scholars to do Jarh wa Ta'dil was from the Tabi'un, Al-Imam Al-Sha'bi rahimahullah ta'ala, Amir ibn Sharahil Al-Sha'bi. Imam Amir ibn Sharahil Al-Sha'bi. Also Muhammad ibn Sirin was known to do Jarh wa Ta'dil. So you have to realize that these scholars, they didn't take pleasure in defaming people. These scholars, they had wara', they feared Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To them, these people are people who knew the dangers of ghiba. Because when you defame someone, you are in danger of falling into ghiba. If your intention is to just defame that person and your intention isn't to preserve this deen, then you fall into ghiba straight away. So they were very, very clear, and they were very afraid of doing jarh wa ta'dil. Some of them used to say that we may be disparaging and defaming people who are from the inhabitants of Jannah and paradise. But to preserve this deen, we have to do this. So it was something that they had to do. And some of them, they used to do things that would be considered as a disparagement or a defaming for fear of falling into ghiba. Al-Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala, mathalan, when he was told of a rawi and it was said to him, what do you think of this narrator? He would do this. He would do this with his hands. He would just literally do this with his hands. He would literally wipe his hands together as if to say something, but he wouldn't say anything with his mouth. And when the people saw Imam Bukhari do this, they knew not to take from that rawi. He wouldn't say anything for fear if he said something, he would fall into ghiba. This is why Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, I have never, backbited a Muslim. He said I have never backbited a Muslim once I learnt of the prohibition of backbiting. This is Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala. And even his father was known for wara' and for being someone who has zuhd and who was very God-fearing. His father, it was said that his father never ever entered, no haram ever entered his house. Nothing, no haram provisions or sustenance ever entered his house, subhanallah. So this is the author of Imam Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala. His mother, he was born blind, subhanallah, Imam al-Bukhari. And his mother used to make dua and supplicate to Allah every single night, until one night she saw the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, giving her the glad tidings that her son's eyesight had been, her dua had been accepted. And she raced to her son's room and his eyesight was accepted. This is Imam al-Bukhari rahimahullah ta'ala, who, when he was on a ship, he himself is narrating that he was on a ship, on a safina, traveling as usual to a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ for months and months, and he had 1,000 dinars in his pocket, and he befriended a thief. He didn't know he was a thief in the ship, and the thief found out that he had 1,000 dinars, and then the thief said to the people in the ship after a while, when he found out, he said, "Oh people, 1,000 dinars have been taken from me by force, have been stolen from me in this ship. 1,000 dinars, please." And then he made a big fuss, and the people started looking in every corner in the ship. And then Bukhari, when he saw what was happening, he threw the 1,000 dinars into the sea, and then they couldn't find anything. They checked everyone. And then they started to blame this man for being a liar, the thief. And then the thief afterwards, he said to Imam Bukhari, "What did you do with the 1,000 dinar? He said, "I threw it into the ship." He said, "But why did you throw 1,000 dinars into the ship?" Imam al-Bukhari said, "Why would I not? Why would I endanger my reputation for 1,000 dinar? What was the point? If they catch me with this 1,000 dinar and I am accused of lying, this is going to affect the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ that I am carrying. So I would rather, for my reputation, throw 1,000 dinars into the sea. Because money to these people was nothing. The worldly life, this was nothing. These people, the way they lived, subhanallah, there is no description that can give them justice, subhanallah. They were truly zuhad. They feared Allah to the extent that they would do things that you and me take for granted every day. But they would abstain from these things for fear of falling into a sin, subhanallah. This is why they have the highest ranks, inshallah ta'ala, in the sight of Allah, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. So they didn't take any pleasure in defaming people and talking about individuals. Unfortunately, nowadays you have people who, because of, they say, ilm al-jarh wa ta'deel, we should talk about every single individual. Ya akhi, who gives you the right to talk about certain individuals and to do jarh of certain individuals and do ta'deel of certain individuals? And then they use the examples of the Salaf. Subhanallah, ayna anta min as-Salaf, ayna nahnu min as-Salaf, subhanallah. These are a'imma, subhanallah. An example of a jarh is the statement of Abu Hanifa when he said, "Ma ra'aytu akdhaba min Jabir al-Ju'fi." Jabir al-Ju'fi was accused of being a Shi'i, and Imam Abu Hanifa refuted him, and he said, I have not seen anyone who is more deserving of being a liar, or I have not seen anyone who is the most lying of people than Jabir al-Ju'fi. Okay, so his hadith. Al-A'mash also, Sulaiman ibn Mihran, also he was known for jarh wa ta'deel, Shu'b ibn al-Hajjaj, Malik ibn Anas, wa hakada. طيب. So now we come to the, inshallah ta'ala, we'll get to the next issue. I'll give you a 5-minute break, inshallah ta'ala, before we get to the next issue. Sallallahu sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een.